Since I've started this channel, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out why the last few generations of kids have been so unprepared for life as adults. We all know there are many reasons for the drastic rise in mental health issues for these generations. When I think about it, I look for the little things. There's really no one big thing that caused this decline. It's an accumulation of a whole bunch of the little things. I titled this video Strengths from 1,000 Adversities after comparing my childhood with that of my son. How were things different for him? What was a normal day in his life for him when compared to my childhood? In general, I'm not sure how much different his days were than mine until I think about the specifics. You get down to the nitty-gritty of his day versus mine. When I do that, it becomes clear that he had a very different childhood from me. Now, I'm not talking about the differences from where we grew up. If you grew up in a small Midwestern town versus the streets of Philadelphia, yes, your childhood experiences would have been dramatically different. If you grew up in a single-parent household compared to someone that had 4 brothers and sisters in a multi-generational home, your childhood would have been very different in many ways. The differences I'm talking about are the little things. We ignore the little things so often, but we shouldn't. To me, it's the little things that can make some of the biggest differences. For instance, when I was in elementary school, we used the card catalog to find books in the library. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. When I had a report to do in elementary school, my parents had to drive me to the local public library, sometimes on a school night for a few hours. But if I remember correctly, it was most often on a Saturday or a Sunday where I had to sit down and do all the research to do my report. I'd spend hours going through the card catalog to find books and then going onto the shelves and getting them. Or worse, having to go to the librarian and get me the Microfiche and then scroll through a few hundred pages to find the article I needed. Now, the words I just used, card catalog and Microfiche, you may have no idea what I'm talking about. I put these words, the proper spelling, in the description of this video. I'm hoping you take a few minutes to look those things up. You might look at an image or watch a video to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Now, during my years as an elementary school student, this was a common experience, at least once or twice a year. Not just for me, for everybody. Having to go to the library, the public library. Now, here's another one. Did you know that when I was a kid, I had to get up and walk to the TV to change the channel? That's how it was. Now, there were only a few channels, nothing like the ridiculous amount of options we have today, but if I wanted to change the channel, I had to get up and walk to the TV and turn the knob. Now, I remember when I was somewhere maybe in my freshman year of high school, sometime around that time, they developed a push-button channel changer. It was attached to the TV with a cable. Not only did I not have to get up every time I wanted to change a channel, but there must have been at least 20 channels I could watch. It was awesome. At that time, it was awesome. Now, what's the big deal, you say? Were those inconveniences really that important in your development? And I would answer, yes, they were important. Those two and 100 others just like them. Now let's go back to my original premise. Strength from 1,000 adversities. Obviously, it's a take on death by 1,000 cuts. That phrase, death by 1,000 cuts, it was originally a form of torture in the very distant past. Today, we, modern people, we use that term to describe a failure that occurs as a result of many small problems that may not individually be fatal, but the cumulative effect of them over time can cause serious damage. That's death by 1,000 cuts. I like to say strength from 1,000 adversities. Those sayings really are opposite sides of the same coin. Now, what was my point of telling you about my use of the card catalog or Microfiche? Why mention that I have to get up to actually change the channel on the TV and turn a knob? Because for me and my generation, Those were strengths from 1,000 adversities. Those two and the 100 others just like them. Individually, those inconveniences didn't really seem to matter much. But here's the thing. Those constant little inconveniences, irritations, obstacles, they helped me and everyone from my generation to develop the strength to ignore the little things, to accept the little inconveniences, irritations, and obstacles that are just part of our life. And here's what's even more important. The cumulative effect of dealing with all those little issues helped us build a resistance to the tough stuff, the big stuff, the important stuff that we all have to deal with as adults. My generation, and even more so with generations prior to mine, built strength from 1,000 adversities. The little things that seem so trivial, so unimportant, actually, they're incredibly important. Now, let me make this argument using a different example. Working out, going to the gym, building strength, building up your muscles. Anyone who has spent any time trying to get fit, get strong, get healthy, knows that you don't achieve that result overnight. If you want to build a muscle, make it stronger, you don't go lift 1,000 pounds 10 times and then you're done. It doesn't work that way. You lift 10 pounds 1,000 times. You want to build strength? It's through repetition. All those little inconveniences to your muscles over time build strength. There are so many examples of this concept if you stop and think about it. Here's another one that's personal to me. I studied Taekwondo for many years. The first time I attempted to throw a roundhouse kick, it was sad, it was pathetic. I may have even pulled a muscle. But after 5 years of training, 5 days a week, after throwing 10,000 roundhouse kicks, I started to get pretty good at it. Martial arts, like so many disciplines, is about repetition. All of the littles make for an eventual big change, eventually a big improvement. Strength from 1,000 adversities, or death by 1,000 cuts. Here's why it matters today more than ever. You see, when I was a kid, we developed strengths over time by dealing with all those little inconveniences, irritations, and obstacles. But today, that coin has been flipped on its head. The last few generations, they're going backwards in a sense. They're dying a death by 1,000 cuts. Parents over the last few generations have consciously, purposefully, intentionally removed those little inconveniences, irritations, and obstacles. Parents foolishly believe that they were helping their kids by making life easier for them. I mean, think about it. What difference does it really make if parents remove all those little obstacles from their kids' lives? It would seem that removing those things would help their kids get ahead faster, achieve more, reach their goals quicker. I mean, come on. The little things, those are for little people to deal with. Now, I'm being sarcastic, obviously. In my opinion, every time a parent makes their child's life a little easier, they're cutting them. Now, let me say that a different way. Let's not say they're cutting them. What they're doing is thinning their kids' skin. They're making those kids more vulnerable to the little cuts, more at risk to the things that should really be no problem. But eventually, those little things become a problem because kids raised that way have thin skin. This whole topic made me go back and really think about how I raised my son regarding the little things. This is one of those areas where my wife and I often disagreed many times. You see, I purposefully made my son's life more difficult for him as often and in as many ways as possible when he was young. For instance, I rarely parked in the closest spot to the store. I parked far away, sometimes ridiculously far away. Like there are no cars for several rows, and then I park. It didn't matter if it was raining or cold or whatever. That's how I did it. Yes, this irritated both my wife and my son, and they would ask me why I would do that. Now, I always drove a pickup truck, so I would say, well, my truck was too big to fit tightly in space. I didn't want anyone to have to open their door and ding the side of my truck. Now, that's a logical explanation, but it's not really the whole truth. The most important reason I did it was to make my son walk farther, get him to get used to it. Sometimes life is inconvenient. Now, here's another one. Unless he was sick or really worn out for some reason, I got him up early every day. And I didn't just go in and give him a gentle shake. I would go in and I would march and yell and make a big scene, be loud. Sometimes I would rip the covers off him. One quick pull, blanket, comforter, gone. I enjoyed it very much. He hated it. I recognized that my son's life was much easier in so many ways than mine growing up. I had to account for that. I wanted to add the strength from 1,000 adversities to his life. Modern life has been simplified in so many ways. Have you ever seen the movie WALL-E, Pixar movie? Yes, there's a whole environmental angle. Yes, humans do seem to trash everything they touch, but that's not the part of the movie I'm talking about here. It wasn't WALL-E or the planet that scared me. It was the depictions of the humans in that movie. Overweight, laying around in flying chairs with everything available at the touch of a button. The depiction of how far human beings had fallen was terrifyingly real for me. A modern kid watching that movie probably thought, those chairs are awesome. I don't even need to walk anywhere. I can get everything I want by swiping a screen or pushing a button. For me, watching it, it sent chills down my spine. Now, if you haven't seen WALL-E, if you've never seen it or haven't watched it in a while, go watch it again. It's really an amazing movie. It's a piece of art, frankly. Great visually, great story, and very thought-provoking if you spend the time thinking about what it's trying to say. Now, are you purposefully making your child's life easier? Or are you consciously creating small obstacles in their life to slowly build the strength they'll need as an adult? Having thick skin. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. If you don't have thick skin, death by 1,000 cuts. We leave our kids unprepared to handle the cumulative nature of the challenges every adult faces virtually every day in their adult lives. Today's world, the technologies, the systems, the tools, we've developed them to such an amazing degree, such amazing advances with so many things. But unfortunately, it's weakened us. We're debilitated in a sense, unable to cope with daily little paper cuts that for prior generations felt like nothing. But to today's generations, those cuts burn and sting and distract from the important things we need to accomplish every day. Going to the public library to do a report for school, finding books by using the card catalog, or scrolling through page after page of a Microfiche to do research. Getting up every time I wanted to change the TV channel. Those were nothing inconveniences to me. Can you imagine a child of today, a Gen Alpha? How would they deal with those minor inconveniences? I don't even like to think about it. These minor inconveniences were important, along with the other 100 minor inconveniences my generation had to deal with. They were important in our path to adulthood. Strength from 1,000 adversities. If you want to raise an independent, confident, good decision maker, you're going to have to introduce adversities into your son or daughter's life. You're going to have to figure out how to inconvenience them on purpose. Because life today, it's far too convenient. It's too easy compared to the way past generations were raised. Now, I understand what I'm asking you to do, and it's probably the exact opposite of what so many other people, including parenting professionals, have told you. You have to consider what effect a life of instant gratification and ease has on the development of your child. Because when you look at the stats regarding the mental health of today's children, something has to change. Whatever the so-called experts have been preaching for the last 20 plus years is not working. For the sake of your kids, for all our kids, for the sake of our future society, please consider the importance of the concept I call strength from 1,000 adversities. Thanks for listening.